Hello, I'm Julia Fisher, and you're listening to The Olive Tree. Welcome to the programme that brings you interviews from both Arab and Jewish believers living in Israel and the Palestinian areas today, to give an insight into their lives and the challenges they face. Nardine Khalil is a student at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Her mother is English. Her father is Palestinian. Nardine was born and brought up in Nazareth, a predominantly Arab town in northern Israel. In a country where identity matters, Nardine describes herself as a Palestinian Israeli Christian, and you will hear the pain and struggle with identity that she feels. You will also hear how she's intent on using her experience to help others. We met in Netanya, and I started by asking Nardine about how her parents met.
My mother was in Israel. She came with an OM team, Operation Mobilization, and she met my father through one of the teams that were doing some evangelism around the Arab villages and towns. And then she later returned to volunteer for a Scottish hospice in Tiberias, and I think that's where things got going.
So you have had an upbringing in an Arab town because Nazareth is predominantly Arab. You must have therefore gone to an Arab-speaking school.
Yeah, I grew up in a wonderful neighborhood in Nazareth, very close. It's a new neighborhood, all young couples and all the kids were my age, and I grew up with playing in the streets with kids, seeing myself as one of them as an Arab and not really any different in any way. I went to the Baptist school, and everything was in Arabic, and we had a very strong English program because it was founded by Americans, so that made it easy too. And we also started learning Hebrew in 4th grade.
Did you have many Jewish friends when you were growing up?
I used to go to Messianic camps when I was younger. My parents wanted to send me to get to know some Jewish kids, to get to know the other side, to grow up knowing them, and also to learn Hebrew really quick. So I made some friends at camp. I was mostly in touch with them by phone or by email, but I saw them occasionally at camps and conferences.
As a teenager growing up, did you find yourself taking sides? What was your position?
Growing up, I usually stayed in the background. I think I had my share of identity issues. I didn't know where exactly I would fit in. In Nazareth, we have a divide between, generally between communists and others who are more religious Christian. They don't really care so much about politics. And although I really cared about what was going on, and I was leaning towards the communists, which, I mean, communist is a bad word for them because in Nazareth they're quite different than what the connotations are. But I grew up in a Christian family and was told not to talk so much about politics and not discuss it so much. It's not as important. I stayed in the background, but I think I had my opinions but never really voiced them or developed them.
You mentioned the word identity, and it seems everybody in this country has an identity. So identity is a real issue here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a real issue. It's changing all the time. It gets renewed all the time. Every time there's a political situation or any conflict or war or anything happens, you have to rethink and reassess your identity all the time. It's always been a struggle between being Palestinian, growing up in Israel, holding an Israeli passport, and also having a part British culture in me and trying to understand which identity I am and thinking I needed to choose one of them and needed to be just one of them completely. Struggling with how people would define me, and if they'd call me just Israeli, it wasn't complete, or if they'd call me just Palestinian, it wasn't complete, and if they call me British, it wasn't complete at all.
So how do you describe yourself?
I would say I'm a Palestinian Israeli, and I'm also British to some degree, but I don't think it's a large part of my identity.
I suppose the positive side to all of that is that you fit in to a number of places very easily. You just merge with whoever you're mixing with.
Yeah, it's very easy for me to adapt. I really enjoy it too. I feel like I can go anywhere and I know exactly what to expect and what's to be expected of me. I know how to behave and I know how everything works. I usually end up being a cultural translator to other people. It's kind of a game. Sometimes it's fun, but many times it's actually very frustrating because you feel like you don't really belong to any of them. And because if you're not 100%, then you're nothing.
You got involved in an organisation called Musalaha, which I believe is an Arabic word meaning reconciliation.
Yeah, I'd heard about Musalaha before, but I first encountered it after I finished school. They had a youth leader training conference in Cyprus, and I was very interested in it. I'd heard that they bring together Arabs and Jews and Palestinians from the West Bank and from Israel, and I'd started youth meeting then with some of my friends in Nazareth and also some of my Messianic friends in Nazareth Elite. So I thought, going on youth leader training would be great, especially in this context. So I went to Cyprus with Musalaha, and I really fell in love with their vision and their teaching. They didn't only train us for youth leader training, they taught us why it's really important to bring the body together and to train the youth to be not just tolerant but caring of one another across the cultures, across the divide.
What did you find were some of the deeper issues and more difficult issues that you had to deal with?
Again, I think it would have been identity, mostly. Many of the youth that would come to the youth groups, either they wouldn't want to come because there were Jews there, or the Jews wouldn't want to come because there were Arabs there. And the ones who were willing to come, either they were frustrated that things are leaning more towards Hebrew, or the other way, leaning more towards Arabic. And I felt like there has to be some training and some understanding of how we are both equally important, and how to really know ourselves and be confident of ourselves in Christ, and not to see it's a struggle to feel, especially growing up around the Messianic community, that you get the feeling like they think they are better because they're Jewish. And it was important to
I know this is the hardest area you're having to deal with, and it's no wonder you find it upsetting, but I think therefore it's so important for us to understand just what a deep issue this is, and therefore why it is so important that Christians in the West do not take sides. It's not helping you, is it?
No, it doesn't help. It's really important for us to understand and to know that we matter just as much and not any less. And that to know that we matter for just being ourselves and embracing who we are, and not having to water down our identity to be accepted, or to embrace our Israeli identity just because we think people would like that and people will bless that.
You're studying, as well as being involved in Musalaha, you're studying at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. You're studying
sociology and anthropology.
And you want to use this in a very particular way. Just describe your dreams.
I started studying sociology and anthropology because I was really interested in how cultures work and how people behave and how they adapt, and because I was able to understand the different cultures and fully adapt because I fully understood, and just it all made sense. When you were in this situation, this is how you did it. And when you were in that situation, it's how you did it. But it's really helped my understanding of people and cultures. I hope to continue studying art therapy because during one of our Musalaha conferences, we had a session called the Theatre of the Oppressed. It's a concept of theatre that was started by Augusto Boal. He's a Brazilian who started what's called a foam theatre. It builds up, it goes through stages, and it gets people acting out different situations and then sitting there and talking about them and discussing them. And eventually you get to a place where your team acts out a scenario or a conflict that ends badly, where there's one person who is being oppressed. And then all the people who are observing can stop the drama at any point and take the part of the person being oppressed and see if they can change the situation without taking away the conflict. And then after doing that, you talk about it and you talk about how it felt to be in different positions. And it's really helped me understand myself, and it's also helped me understand the other side and understand how it is to be in a position of power and understand how it is to be in a position of oppression and how to think creatively and how to question and how to criticize, and something we don't get taught much at our Arab schools. So it was very therapeutic for me to do this, and I really hope to study through art and through theatre to be able to help people express themselves in conflict and to understand how they feel. I'm really passionate about conflict areas and people struggling from trauma, from war. I have a big heart for Gaza. It's been going on for a while, way before the war happened. I hope one day to go there and to be able to get children to create things and to feel like they can create and to feel like they're thinking within themselves and explaining things that are happening and pouring out their hearts, even if they don't say any words. I think it's just very therapeutic. It gives you the strength and the confidence to create and to move on and to do things.
Nardine Khalil, bravely sharing her story. You're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher, the programme that introduces you to some of the people God is using in Israel and the Palestinian areas today. People who believe in reconciliation through a shared belief in Jesus and all that he accomplished on the cross. If you'd like to know more about what God is doing in the Middle East, then let me tell you about the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, a small charity based in the UK that supports needy Arab and Jewish believers. You'll find a lot of information on our website, www.olivetreefund.org, including news about our next tour to Israel. If you'd like to get involved and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either email inquiries@olivetreefund.org, or you can write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, PO Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. Join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.